you'll be forgiven for thinking that there's way too much that has happened in 2025 alone for all of this to just have been in 2025. But really, since the advent of the GNU and since the incredible loss that the ANC suffered, it felt like, and we've spoken about this before, we've covered every single one of these corrupt scandals, but it has truly felt as if the ANC has sort of felt the ground under their feet shifting, and everyone is now just running for the hills, right? Everyone is trying to enrich themselves as quickly as possible. Week in, week out, we're seeing more and more articles, more and more investigations, more and more corruption scandals coming out of the ANC. And the ANC appears to be, for the first time really in its entire history, the party on the defense. You know, if you go back to 1994, you look at the period really from 1994 all the way up to, I would argue, 2023, right? The ANC has always been the party that shaped the national dialogue, but they've always been the one to sort of lead the conversation. Whether that was good or bad is up for debate, but they were the ones who would attack with impunity. They would be the ones who could basically brush off everyone else and just be like, quiet, we are in charge, we know what we're doing. And really for the last year, well, not even the last year, but for the last 8 months or so, the ANC has felt like a party that is just consistently trying to plug whichever holes in the wall are appearing. As the walls are crumbling, they're desperately trying to fill in those holes and protect the party from anything that is going on in the outside, which is actually one of the things that I believe is going to cause the downfall of this organization. The very thing that for such a long time made them almost impenetrable. The fact that the ANC had this wall around them that no one could pierce. If you wanted to get to the people on the inside of the ANC, you'd have to get through this wall, and this wall would stand. They would never turn on each other. They would always be sort of united as a front. And this made them a formidable political opponent to deal with, because even if someone was caught in corruption, they would sort of retreat behind the wall and then eventually emerge in some other capacity. But this very thing has now become its own death chamber, as the heat of the fires around this wall has started to increase, and the wall has started to crack as a result of this pressure and heat. The ANC members on the inside are being cooked alive with no way of escaping this impenetrable fortress that they have built for themselves. And we're seeing this more and more. Just last week, we covered a poll coming from the DA that shows the ANC now sits at below 30%, just 29%. Now, I did watch yesterday a video on Biz News from a polling expert, someone who called the 2024 elections to within a percentage point of every single party, who basically spoke about what is this poll, how trustworthy is this poll, and he said the same thing that I said. The DA's polls are actually incredibly accurate. The DA has one of the most sophisticated polling instruments in the country, if not in the world. And the DA, what makes their poll incredible is that they have what is called an ongoing poll. So most polls are sort of pulse checks. You know, they go out at a given time, maybe once or twice a year, and they ask people, what do they think? And then they'll compare that to last year around about the same time. Whereas the DA's one is every single month. Every single month, they're calling a set number of people, getting their ideas, getting their sort of feeling about where the country is. And that is incredible. The problem is most polling organizations don't have the money or the funds to actually run such an extensive polling network. But that is something that the DA has done pretty much since its inception. I wonder if the ANC has something similar. I actually think the ANC does not have polling. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But okay, so the poll comes out, and the ANC, they're not very happy. The ANC makes the following statement on X. This was during their discussion as well, during their media briefing that they gave this. But they say, polls the GNU and the strength of the ANC. The ANC rejects manipulative opinion polls designed to sow doubt about the movement's strength and relevance. Many of these polls are funded by neoliberal think tanks and DA-aligned interests to project a manufactured narrative of ANC decline. Anyone that has paid attention to the last election will know that the ANC is in decline. This isn't manufactured. If you actually didn't live under a rock, you would understand this. I'll tell you in a second why the ANC does not understand it. The ANC remains the central and stabilizing force in the GNU. We will continue to review structural arrangements to ensure stability and sharpen the focus on service delivery. The ANC is not a spectator, it leads. One of the things that I think the ANC is going to suffer from here, remember what the ANC's current strategy is, what they're hoping they may achieve in the lead up to the next election. The ANC, and we've heard this from France Cornier, who spoke to someone who knows people inside the NEC and inside the ANC organization, their current strategy is that the country is going to decline. And for the next election, they're going to tell the people, look at what you did to us. Look at what you did to the country. If you want the country to return to stability and to be successful, you have to stop voting for all of these other parties. We can't have a GNU. We need a strong ANC. That's their strategy. But stuff like this really ruins said strategy when you say, we're not a spectator, we lead. What does this tell people on the ground? It tells people on the ground, my current situation, the life that I'm currently living, is a result of the leader. You see, but this is where the ANC's disconnect comes in. This is why I said I don't think the ANC actually has polling. I think the ANC has always trusted in the fact that they can lead, right? And they will just always win elections. So wasting money on polling would be of no consequence to them. More importantly, thanks to their cadre employment schemes, if they were to get a polling station or a polling mechanism set up, it would probably be compromised. The big issue is that the ANC leadership is completely divorced from the average South African. They don't know what the average South African is going through. When Cyril Ramaphosa, you guys remember, I think it was late last year or maybe early this year, Cyril Ramaphosa had a snag in Johannesburg and then suddenly said, I had no idea how bad the roads and the situation was in Johannesburg. And then the media rightfully said, dude, you drive through Johannesburg at least once a week because Lutuli House is there. How can you say that you had no idea? I don't think the president is lying. Remember, in order to look out your window and actually pay attention to where you're going, you need to care about the people that you're governing. The ANC, the leadership, the people in the organization, they don't care. Every single person that is part of the ANC, and this is sort of where political parties are super important. When you have a political party, the people at the top are almost always going to be relatively successful and quite rich. Right? Then you're going to have middle management that sort of live among the middle class, and you're going to have volunteers. You're going to have young people and oftentimes people who get paid very little money to be inside your organization. And while we might argue, oh, that's super sad because look at all the work that they're doing, what's important about that is it allows for all people in the country to be represented within the political party. What happens when every single person that is in the political party becomes very, very wealthy and very, very influential is they lose touch with the ordinary South African, the person on the ground. Fikile Mbalula couldn't care less about the poor people on the ground. He's not one of them. He doesn't live among them. He doesn't know anyone that lives among them. The same goes for Cyril Ramaphosa. So when he says we're a party, we're not a spectator, we lead, he means that. And in his mind, he doesn't think that the ANC is declining. He most likely blames the last election results on the MK. And he has said before that the MK and the EFF will eventually implode and these mushroom parties will disappear and the ANC will remain because they're strong. He believes that, you see, because he doesn't think that the MK and the EFF is as a result of ANC failure. He actually he does kind of think that it's as a result of failure, but in his mind, the failure is that they haven't gone extreme enough. They need to be more left-wing. When you actually look at the MK and the EFF and their election results, both of these parties enjoy roughly between 12 and 15% of the national vote. If you put them together, between 12 and 15% nationally, because remember, only about 50% of people vote in this country. This suggests that populist parties would have the most voters coming out to vote for them. That's the whole point of populist parties. So if a populist party can only get about 15%, or in the case of the EFF, well, actually, it's like 12.5%, but you get the point, right? The EFF can get about 10% of the vote, and the MK can get about 15% of the vote, but less than, or just over 50% of the population is actually voting. That tells you everything you need to know. The South African public has no stomach for more extreme politics, and the ANC clearly doesn't understand this. More importantly, if you guys remember after yesterday's video, I showed you Naledi Pandor basically calling out the ANC in so many words. Fikile Mbalula comes out and says, I've listened to her. She said all the right things of what needs to be done. She was not critical of the ANC. She was, in fact, articulating the renewal project. Now, first, you cannot listen to Naledi Pandor's speech and not go, yeah, she's talking directly to the ANC. But even if, let's imagine she did not speak directly to the ANC, this suggests that there isn't a single person in the ANC that understands that the ANC is the problem. Neither of these are good. Not a single outcome here is good. It's sort of like Cyril Ramaphosa and the whole Iran trip. There are no good outcomes in this one. The ANC is a party on the brink of destruction. They're still doing the thing that most South Africans are sick and tired of, speaking. At the media briefing, for example, the ANC vowed that they will only elect ethical, capable cadres. Now listen to this. He said the following: the through the eye of the needle principle remains the yardstick. Leadership is not an entitlement, but a revolutionary responsibility. Now you might be asking, what is through the eye of the needle? Well, that is a set of moral and ethical standards requiring its public representatives not to be corrupt and to adhere to the organization's values. And you might say, wow, they just adopted that literally yesterday? That's amazing. No, they adopted that in 2007 at the exact same conference where they elected Jacob Zuma. So when the ANC tells you the through the eye of the needle principle still remains, what they're effectively telling you that that's what they've been doing since 2007, and they have not elected a single honest and capable cadre to anything, right? The ANC is a party in decline. It's a party that at this point, I don't believe can turn things around. Maybe in the future, we'll have a video where we discuss what happens when the ANC finally loses an election. That's taking a lot more research than I actually thought, because I'm trying to look at countries that have effectively been governed by a de facto dictatorship, and what happens when that dictatorship finally crumbles. It's not pretty. Usually what ends up happening is a lot of infighting, and because the de facto dictatorship is so entrenched within society, there's a massive amount of fighting for resources and fighting for control. So it's not a pretty picture, but I'm still in the process of doing that research. So we're going to have to wait and see. Once that's done, I'll have that video for you. But let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about all of this. I'm sure all of us are celebrating the death of the ANC, but I still love to read your comments. If you like what I do and you think more people should see it, please consider hitting the like button, hitting that subscribe button, and leaving a comment, because it truly helps. Every single time you comment or like or subscribe, YouTube looks at that and the algorithm goes, wait, if he liked it, maybe other people that watch similar videos to what he watches will also like this, because the algorithm is just trying to present people with content that they might like. So you truly do help whenever you do that. Then massive shout out to all of the patrons and the YouTube channel members for continuously giving me a platform and allowing me to speak my mind, allowing me to be brave in the face of pressure, to know that I'm on the right track. So thank you so much for that. To become a member or a patron, simply hit the link in the description down below or click the join button right below this video. As always, be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. A peace.